that was why yesterday's winner was so prevalent. She's going to go there as defending champion. So with the courses being announced for next year, a lot of them go off the course and come back and do their loops in Montreal, but this is the only one that goes off piste.
Meanwhile, off for an ice cream is Julien Alaphilippe, I'm afraid. Double world champion is not going to be a feature at the end of today. He tested himself, it was too much, he's not well, he's off the bike. Sensible, I think, even at this late stage of the season. He might have something like Liège-Bastogne-Liège in his mind if he recovers in time. A bug apparently that he picked up in Canada. So a lot of air miles. I imagine he has possibly open access to the executive suites at the airports because he gets around the planet. Indeed, so does cycling. And we're here in Africa and we're playing in Rwanda. And, well, we've been playing various tunes. And this is Mauro Alfredo, who, indeed, absolutely fabulous kit, I must say. But his day is done. No shame in that, Brian. It's great to have so many national representatives. Oh, that's not good. That is not a good look. Fred Wright just dousing Tom Pidcock here. He did it himself, and then he offered up some help to Tom Pidcock. If he's not feeling great, that's another fabulous name that might well be in trouble. We hope that he rides himself in today. Tadej Pogačar still only 27. He's got a massive career still ahead of him. They say you don't reach your physical peak until you're 28. Should we be scared?
The only thing I'm seeing from Pogačar, the only kind of weakness I've seen is his mentality. He was supposed to go to the Vuelta straight after the Tour de France. He said, no, mentally I need a break. A little bit kind of too much for me. And, you know, we've seen kind of up and down performances. Not a great performance in the time trial, of course, but then again, he was only just over a second off the podium. It was just an incredible performance by Evenepoel. So I don't think, you know, he's won, 16 races this year, Pogačar. So he doesn't race too much or all the time. So it's... I think he's definitely super motivated for this one. Whether he came, I'm just looking at this Rwandan. That was a good take actually.
It was really good.
Rwanda.
Should be an outfielder in the baseball arena. That was amazing.
Yeah, no, that was a really good take there. But a bit of practice is going on there. It was like a low catch there because he couldn't get in front of. I think it was James Knox for Great Britain there just to take that. But going back to Pogačar, it's for me. Kind of mental burnout, 2 words that is I think come upon Pogačar this year. And it's hard to believe that someone that's so good like that, you know, suffers sometimes from that kind of mental burnout. He doesn't race too much, as we've already mentioned, but it's every race he rides, he's under so much pressure. But you saw him when in the sign-on, he jumped onto the podium and he told him, what are you doing? You have to sign on. And he had a kind of fun and joke about it. So he had to go back and sign his name as the protocol. But he seemed in high spirits. And I think the big thing that motivates him here, and it's something that big champions love. They love riding for the country. They absolutely love it. Having it. Doesn't matter if you're World Championship bands on or anything like that, you're national champion. Riding for your country is something special. And I think Pogačar is so proud to be Slovenian. It's a small cycling country that punches way above its weight. And I think, you know, he wants to do the country proud. I have to say, at the same time, we do have 11 riders from UAE Team Emirates team. Right? Sometimes in World Championships, you get trade teams getting involved.
Trade help.
Yes, you do get, and I'm not beating about the bush here. It's sometimes we get that. Some federations, and we've talked about other federations not sending a lot of riders that don't have a lot of money, but some federations put a bonus scheme up for, you know, the countries. Everybody gets the same. If they win the world title. So there is a bit of that, but it was interesting to hear from Del Toro what happens if you find yourself in front with Pogacar, and he says, man against man.
Love
which
that.
is great.
It is. Eric Mane Zabayo is trying to get over from a 6-man team from Rwanda. And they're loving seeing this on the big screen. It is a cycling festival. Absolutely loving it. Trust you are too at home. Mane Zabayo just trying to get off and away from the peloton that sits at 2 minutes and 46 margin to our breakaway. Just a brief one on Sao Tome and Principe. It's a West African nation, 2 islands off the Gulf of Guinea. Absolutely beautiful, natural beauty, rich in culture. And indeed, they've sent 2 riders for us. Unfortunately, Alfredo is one of those who is out. Do Rosario, I think, is still riding. But, yeah, I mean, you see some very unusual and rare cycling kit here. And I've got to say, some of it is absolutely gorgeous. Sadly, not available in 3XL for me. But it's one of the gifts of going to a place like this. They used to... you will have experienced this, Brian, pin collectors. Remember pin collectors when you went to the Atlanta Olympics? They were absolutely everywhere, and nations would swap pins. And I think that's kind of ebbed a little bit because people don't wear blazers these days and pins have gone. But coming to the Worlds here, you get access to some fantastic and really unusual kit.
Yeah, I've been quite fortunate to ride a few Commonwealth Games, and I got introduced to them when I was 18, my first year at that level in Scotland. I was given these pins, and I was like, what are they for? And then all of a sudden people were coming up to me, you get any pins? Swap. And I was like swapping pins, like, I was a veteran at doing it. And yeah, I've still got a lot of these pins at home somewhere. And then you go to the Olympics and exactly the same thing, a little bit kind of collector's item. I've not been to the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games in recent years, so I don't know if that's still the case.
Yeah, pins kind of almost a thing of the past, really, but some collectors ended up with thousands of the things. But yeah, coming here and getting the badges from some of the smaller nations here, it's a badge of honour that says you've actually made the trip. Will Tom Pidcock make the trip? He's still hanging at the back, Brian.
I think he's okay. Let's see how this race develops, but a lot of the riders, this is what they do, just ride in the whales, save as much as they can. But I tell you what, for Manzi Bayo, he is really and royally entertaining this crowd. If they're not singing and dancing and having a party atmosphere before, they certainly are now, because this is what they want. They want to see a Rwandan cyclist on his own off the front of the peloton.
Yep, take the picture quick with lots of star riders behind him. That's the way. But yeah, Mane Zabayo is going for it. 26 kilometres an hour is a decent old pace when you're on these cobbles. Just coming up to the crest, and we'll come up and over the top and then start heading back down. Brian, in 23 kilometres time, there'll only be 200 kilometres left.
Yeah, now look at these riders. They know what to expect. They've done this before. Sometimes in stage races they have big long stages, especially the Giro d'Italia in the past. But just looking at Garcia Perna from Spain, that's been a big effort, especially early on in this race. Look at the riders at the front. They're having a chat with each other. Garcia Perna, head down, trying to come across.
Still going for it. Bless him. Meanwhile, this man, Mane Zabayo, is about to be tagged. Double elbow flip there. Can't quite see who the Slovenian is who's on the front. He's trying to ask for some help. Not going to get any. Belgium absolutely locked onto the wheel. Listen to this man being called to the top into this fan zone.
He was here yesterday.
I love that guy. Whoever he is as a line announcer, I want him to come to my next birthday party.
Well, the thing is, he did it every lap yesterday, and he's doing it every lap today. I know as a commentator sometimes when you do 4.5 hours commentary yesterday. Takes a little bit of effect in your larynx, but he has an amazing larynx.
Undiminished. I don't know. Maybe he's a cheerleader elsewhere as well. Great Britain then, just dwelling on them momentarily. Pidcock and Onley, clearly they are going to be the principals. Joe Blackmore, oh hello. Do you know there's never a good time for this, Brian? But you know, if you're going to have some bad luck, have it early.
Yeah, of course. In fact, yesterday we didn't see any major problems, punctures. The conditions here are fantastic. I think there was a little bit of rain earlier on today, but you know that we can clearly see it's great conditions at the moment.
Oh, and a couple as well, I'm afraid. Ollie Knight is one of those, and on the deck, can't quite see who it is for Belgium. We'll get downstairs in a moment, I'm sure. That is a nightmare, a touch of wheels, and it can happen at any time, and it's happened right now. Nothing benign about this, I'm afraid, and Van Wilder is one of those that they are struggling to get comfortable. To be honest, let the rider do it himself. Trying to manage that kind of situation. Let's have a look at it, Brian. Here we go.
Yeah, hard to see from here. It looks as a touch of wheels, and then a secondary one in the right-hand side. Just looking to see is that Marc Soler there in the left-hand side for Spain. Yeah, Marc Soler for Spain. That's a big loss for Juan Ayuso, a very, very talented bike rider, and unfortunately, when you crash this fast, don't know what happened, couldn't see from where we were, but you know, a few nations caught amongst the casualties here, unfortunately.
Trying to get his bike straightened out, but he's clearly not ready to remount. There's a whole sequence of burgers on display here from him, I'm afraid, and he's saying, don't touch me, just leave me alone, let me settle myself down. I mean, the help here is trying to help, but to be honest, riders just need some gathering time sometimes, don't they, Brian?
Yeah, it's really not ideal, the situation here. You know, one of the riders that crashed here is obviously Bjorn Coates, the young rider from Picnic Post NL. I just saw the Picnic Post NL and I thought, oh no, I hope it's not Oscar Onley, who you've just mentioned. In fact, talking about Oscar Onley, it's his mum's birthday today.
Happy birthday, Mum, but gosh, that did not look nice at all. Well, it can happen at any time, and we've still got a relatively packed group when they're coming up together. When you get this stretch out and then a recompression, Brian, there is often a call for manoeuvring, but you never know where such a touch of wheels is going to happen within a bunch. But it's more likely to happen if indeed the asphalt is at a premium. When there's a lot of riders very close together, it takes just one small mistake, one little bit of collision, a little bit of hooking of bars, you just never know, rubbing of shoulders, wheels. It gets reflected into a bigger incident, and some have really been through the mincer. Look at this.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see whether it's a touch of bars or coming together of wheels or coming together of handlebars. Very difficult to see from the pictures. It happened in the left, and a secondary movement in the right-hand side caused this with Van Wilder. Van Wilder, well, third in the time trial. He'll be deeply missed by Belgium today, and there's another rider just in front from Italy as well. So a couple of the strong nations have already lost some really important riders.
Yeah, Van Wilder looks hobbled. Soler looks very second-hand. Alaphilippe is out. So Belgium, France, Slovenia already struggling, and it's very, very early days here.
You know what, as a young man I played the trumpet, and I always used to think I wish I was a drummer, because as a trumpet you put a little bit more energy in because you're having to blow
all the time,
and I used to look at the drummers and think, what am I doing playing the trumpet? I should learn to play the drums.
Oh, there we are. It is done, I'm afraid, for Bjorn Kurt. Absolutely roughed up out there. Not good, Brian.
No, there's not a lot you can do when you come down heavily. I think Van Wilder will be the next in the pits. The World Championships is not a race. When you come down this heavily, what else can you do? You can suffer through. Van Wilder is here to help Evenepoel. He's kind of one of the right-hand men for Belgium. He'll be a big loss. He's continuing on in this race, but I think it's forlorn. I don't think, even if he gets back, he'll be much help for Remco Evenepoel today.
Let's see. When you're on a small circuit such as this, Brian, as well, you're never that far away from help, or indeed an escape option, I guess you might say. But equally, if you're not at your best, and another shake of the head here, I'm afraid, and Marc Soler, that is another big name that is clearly not going to be taking much further part in this. It's a real shame, because he's such a live wire and a great entertainer, Soler, isn't he?
I said at the time when he was there, you know, for Ayuso, in my mind, is a major contender, and to lose someone like this, a teammate for the moment for Spain, trade teammate as well, although Ayuso's gone on to Lido Trek. It's Marc Soler could have been a big help to Juan Ayuso.
Not anymore. Back to the pits. Shake of the head says everything. So we've lost Alaphilippe, we've lost Marc Soler, we've lost Bjorn Kurt, we've lost quite a few out there, and there'll be more, I'm afraid, to go. Nobody said this was easy.
It just goes to show you, Carlton, just a moment of maybe lack of concentration, touching the wheels, locking the handlebars, and you're talking about 3 or 4 good riders there that have been hobbled, and 3 or 4 teams, nations. It could happen to the best riders in this peloton.
Agreed, entirely. And unfortunately, the attrition rate is including some very good riders that would have been part of the battle plans for a lot of our principal teams here. Look at this. You take yourself a roundabout. This is the Kimi Harura roundabout park. How lovely is that? I mean, we love the Arc de Triomphe, but what a spectacular rendition of a thing to do with a roundabout. There's a few in Glasgow as well, but we'll talk about the empty bottles of Irn-Bru in the minute. Some of them half empty. I've got to tell you that sometimes it's not Irn-Bru that's in them, but anyway, let's move on. 2 minutes and 16 is our... 2 minutes 16, 216, 2 minutes and 34, I should say, is the gap. To a decent breakaway, but it's almost a holding pattern at the moment. And within... we're circulating, Brian, around about 24 minutes for this lap. In fact, we've got our last lap time for us. We'll have a look in a moment. We will be racking that up as a graphic for you. But it kind of gets into a sort of a vortex whirlwind. Gets quicker and quicker and quicker, it seems, towards the end. Here's Jai Hindley, got himself back here after a very brief technical. Super strong team from Australia. They have Hindley, they've got Jay Vine, Michael Storer, we have Luke Plapp as well. Michael Matthews is here. Bling is doing his thing.
Yeah, but he's had a crash in training before this race. He's got a few bandages and he's kind of hobbling around a little bit, so he is a rider that has featured in the past in the World Championships, but I don't think let's see how he gets on. But if you've had a crash in training before this and he's limping, then I don't think he'll be a major feature in this race.
Great to have somebody with that level of experience, though, Brian, and almost as a talisman.
Exactly, it's good to have him here, and when he is here, unfortunately having that wee incident in training, we don't know too much detail about it, but looking at the front, I thought this would be purely just Slovenia on the front, but Belgium are clearly up for this with Vermeers, but also United States,
yeah. Nielsen Paulus, I guess disappointing that we had indeed that cancellation. But with Quinn Simmons here as well, they've got an option. He has turned himself into one of the feistiest, indeed, contenders. Van Wilder does not look great, and I think this is me just going over to the exit road. I think that was the sign here. Still testing himself out. He stayed on the bike, but surely it can't be for much longer because... apart from anything else.
I think everyone's an underdog compared to Tadej, aren't they? So, but yeah, it's a nice course for me, and yeah, I think we saw in the women's race it can be an unpredictable race. So yeah, I think it's a nice one for me.
The only difference is that on your course there'll be the Mount Kigali, the Mur de Kigali. That could make a real difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a hard course anyway, whether it's in or out. It's I'm not sure it would really change the race too much, but 100% it's definitely going to be a bit of a focal point, and it's just a super hard climb.
Did you wake up with the dream of being world champion?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
I like that. I also like Ben Healy. I think he's brilliant. He's brilliant for cycling, and he's made plenty of Irish eyes smiling in his direction.
Well, Ireland have done it before. I'm going to say this in a possibly surprising fashion.
Go on then.
Well, I've just said it in a surprising fashion.
No, you haven't. You've got to do it in a surprising fashion. What are you going to do? Put on a tutu? Go on.
No, he did it.
Oh,
in
I see.
a surprising fashion.
I thought you said, I am going to say this in a surprising fashion. I was thinking, how are you going to say this in a surprising fashion? But I misunderstood you.
Yeah, you did. Not for the first time. You did. Yeah, with Stephen Roach, he was there supporting Sean Kelly. Mm-hmm. Sean Kelly was the rider that he was looking after during that World Championships. It came into the final throw of the day, and he went through a gap in the inside and became world champion. A good world champion. Stephen Roach, quality bike rider. He won the triple that year with the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France. So you could say that he's a good world champion, but he won it in a kind of surprising fashion.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sean Kelly was the year that Greg LeMond won it for the second time. Greg LeMond had been saying all day, apparently, to Sean Kelly, who was in Grenoble, I believe, that he was feeling terrible and his legs were bad. And he found his legs through the day. And I'm hoping that such a thing happens to Tom Pidcock today and other riders that may be feeling a little bit out of sorts, that don't be tempted to go out. The race can come to you, can't it, sometimes?
It can, but I'm not too sure in this course, Carlton. There's no hiding in this course. Normally you come to a World Championships and just try and hide, just get through the day and feel better and better, because you're talking about a 6.5 hour shift here. Mm-hmm. And not everybody feels great for 6.5 hours on a bike. I don't know anybody that has.
What about on the mic?
Yeah, I don't think anybody even in the mic has felt great for doing 6.5 hours commentary.
Come on, Brian, my company, surely.
Yeah, so I'm going to skip over that and continue. The situation is you have mentally, just look at Pogačar here. He's just small gear, drifting.
Did you see a few moments ago, he moderated his entire team. It was like, right, let's get together, have a chat. We're doing too much here. Well, let's see what happens to the gap, shall we?
Well, I'm surprised that America actually riding. They've got 5 riders here, and I know Quinn Simmons, he did it as a junior in Harrogate, but to put excuse me, it looks like Will Barta here on the front. To put Will Barta on the front here, 5 riders, when you're up against Slovenia with 9, you're up against Belgium with 8, I think down to 7 now with Van Wilder gone. But it's quite a bold statement to come and ride at the front, when I don't think they really have to do this.
I think the word there from Pogačar and Slovenia was like, well, if they want to ride this, let them ride this. Here's the Kigali golf course. Have you been round yet, Brian?
No, I wish. I quite fancy. I'm not. Everybody thinks you Scottish do play golf. The first question I get is,
what's your handicap?
You Scottish?
And
yes.
You say Carlton Kirby.
Yes, of course I do, all the time. You Scottish? Yeah, we're from Glasgow. Rangers or Celtic? I want neither. I support St Mirren. And they go, who? And I just pass over that part. But they say, golfing's great over there. Do you play golf? No. I've played a couple of games in my life. That's about it. But the thing that I'd be interested in is that green rubber track, 2.4 kilometres round the golf course, and I fancy doing a few laps. Maybe not at this altitude, because the first time when after retiring from cycling, I got coached in to do the New York Marathon in 2008, and I got asked just the week before the Tour de France, so I went over to the Tour de France as a guest of one of the teams, and my first run ever was in Alpe d'Huez up to the airport. I tell you what, I could feel it burning in my lungs, and I thought, I can't do this. yeah, I did 3 months later.
And that's when he took up table tennis.
Ping pong.
Vinny McGavie, superhero when it comes to Africa cycling. Not his kind of course at all today, but he's certainly good enough to keep up, at least for the time being. There we are, thumbs up. Good to see him. Good to see him. You know what? He's got a real sense of authority, and I just think maturity about him now. We've watched him come up through the ranks as a youngster. He's grown into the role of a hero of Africa cycling really well.
He is, but I fear a little bit with Biniam Girmay that I've worked with the first African team. It went to, is this Eric again?
Yeah, it might be.
I worked with the first African team that went to the World Championships, and you need that hunger. And I think we saw many years ago when the Iron Curtain came down, and you know, the Russians never became the kind of dominant force they were in kind of amateur cycling, and I'm not too sure if Biniam Girmay still has that same fire in his belly this year than he did last year, and I hope he finds that fire back, because he needs that fire to continue to do what he did last year by green jerseys, three Tour de France stages, you know, that magnificent getting Wevelgem one. We need that Biniam Girmay back.
Mali, I'm afraid, are done. Both Dano and Diarra have now decided to call it a day, or maybe they've been gated, because if there's a chance of being tagged here on this circuit, then you are taken out. But what an amazing kit that is as well. Just looking at the Beehive, which is our convention centre here in Kigali. Absolutely beautiful building. Sense of modernity, but also a nod to the past as well.
Well, just to let you know that it's 15 minutes they get taken off, but the last rider is one of the Mali riders, and he's at 14 minutes and 52 seconds across the finishing line the last time. So most riders are climbing off. Red Walters has climbed off. He was at 12 minutes and 25 seconds down.
There you are. You're beyond the halfway margin of the average pace for the stage. What is our pace at the moment? Let me just.
Well, last lap it was 40, just over 43 kilometres an hour.
Yeah. Well, they're not hanging around, but it's as an average from the beginning, accounting for just after the flag, and it was a little bit modest before our breakaway went up the road. But yeah, we're just under 41 kilometres an hour is where we are seated at the moment. Well, 42 and a bit, actually, 42.3 kilometres as an average so far. So we've covered 57, 58 kilometres, and as it stands, we're having some pushes out. And if Eric Manizabayo, I think he liked the party that welcomed him the last time up the rise at the top of those cobbles, actually. And you start to hear our friend on the PA with the leather larynx about to start screaming them over yet again. This front group on 7%. Plenty of Union Jacks here. The Union flag upon a jack staff known as the Union Jack. Perfectly correct to call it a Union Jack, the Union flag, even though people always write in and say, you've got it wrong again. No, look it up. Remco Evenepoel bringing a golden helmet up towards the fore. It wasn't a humiliation of Tadej Pogačar, because Remco Evenepoel was absolutely in his pomp on the time trial, but to find 2.5 minutes and basically just tag Tadej Pogačar was something incredible, and Frank van den Broek is what's broken for Frank. He gets himself back on. Was it just a little bit of misgearing, maybe just a shipped chain? We've seen chains chucked off on this rough surface, Brian.
We've seen a few, especially to the entry. I think, unfortunately, for the young Scot, Erin Boothman from Glasgow, she had it in the junior time trial, and the same for the junior road race. And if you inch up your chain or pull your foot out or anything like that in this climb, you lose a considerable amount of time. But yeah, look, I don't think it was a humiliation for Pogačar, possibly the first time he's ever been caught in a time trial. But you finished fourth He's only just over a second off the podium. I just think Evenepoel was totally dialed into the effort and, you know, was head and shoulders above everybody else.
Well, there's no shame in finishing in the top 5, but the expectations were that Tadej Pogačar would indeed medal and possibly indeed take the wrestle to Remco Evenepoel. Different, of course, perceptions when it comes to this kind of distance. And as you said, Tadej Pogačar, if his head's in the right place, then he's absolutely bang on. There is a sense that after a few sort of withdrawals, especially a late one for La Vuelta, which caused all kinds of problems for his UAE Team Emirates team. But here he's well supported by former rivals, the likes of Primož Roglic within his team, Luka Mezgec. It's a very, very strong unit that Slovenia have brought to the party. They can manufacture Marshall, if you like, with 9 riders. That's a big team. It's the biggest team we've got here. 8 plus the champion, which of course is Tadej Pogačar. I think he likes the rainbow stripes. It used to be described as a burden, Brian, but he's carried them extraordinarily well.
Yeah, he loves them. He loves his Slovenian national jersey as well. Although out training to try and kind of be under the radar a little bit round about the Monaco area. He does wear just plain clothing, but he loves, you know, winning races in certain jerseys, whether it's a leader's jersey in the Tour de France, whether it's the World Championships jersey. And for sure he's come here to try and win again, and, you know, he's always thinking about creating history, and, you know, his whole team are here to support him.
We talk about the burden. Better explain myself, really. It used to be that when you wore the rainbow stripes, that essentially you were a target, and some riders felt that they were dialed out of success in other races because they were almost immediately jumped onto, and their attacks and their effectiveness, really, as a winner. You stand out. Simple as that. So it was regarded as something of a curse that would stop you winning other races to carry the world champions bands. But I think Peter Sagan possibly put that to bed. And a few others as well wore them with great pride and efficacy. And Tadej Pogačar, it hasn't diminished him at all, it seems.
No, because there's not a lot you can do when he goes on the attack. It's as simple as that. So for a lot of riders that have been world champion, yeah, the cost of the stripes is because you kind of stand out in that jersey. And then you're expected to do more, and that's the problem. You are world champion. Wherever you go in a race, you're seen. Whenever you go on the attack, you're chased down, and whenever you're in front in a breakaway, you're expected to do more. It's as simple as that.
Like Kivu, always love the optimism of a long boat. It's actually for moving goods around the place, but when you see a longboat going out fishing, you think, well, they're going to fill that with fish. And you go out in a massive boat, and you come back with a tiddler. That's why you had a big boat. Thought you were going to fill it. That's the teasing you get. Meanwhile, teasing us into expectations. I think Slovenia, they've not been that far off the front. Van Wilde has indeed called it a day. It was clear that was going to happen. Some injuries due to nudges of wheels. And for those of you that are perhaps joining us a little bit late, a lot of the major teams have actually suffered some significant blows to indeed their roster. Spain have lost Marc Soler. Van Wilde you have just seen for Belgium. Great time trials would have been part of the entry room to try and help Remco Evenepoel to rainbow stripes here. So he's lost. So Evenepoel has lost Van Wilde. Bjorn Kort is no longer at the disposal of Tom Pidcock, who looks a little bit second-hand himself as we look at Evenepoel as he crosses the line here with his golden helmet. So Kort, I'm afraid, is also out for Great Britain after really going through the tumble dryer, it seems, or indeed the rock roller. I'm afraid it was a rocky end to him as he went for a roll after a touch of wheels. There's a few others as well that have indeed been gated. Quite a roster actually of those that come into this very, very hyper elite roster. Possibly just a little bit with something lacking, but it's great to see so many nations represented here. I did love seeing Sao Tome and Principe, a nation that I wasn't very familiar with, I must admit, but an island nation. Just great. Started to look it up myself and thought, gosh, it looks absolutely wonderful, as it has been here. This doesn't look good, Brian.
No, I'm not at all. French dropping, not like flies, but already Alaphilippe down, and yeah, not good for Barret here.
Louis Barret would have been one of the hopes. I think very much an outside hope was Alaphilippe, but not well. Tour of Rwanda itself, of course, is a spectacular race, and indeed it has entertained us and part of the UCI roster. It was the success of this race and others like it on the African continent that have, of course, made the UCI ponder the likelihood and indeed the effectiveness of bringing the World Championships to this great continent. We are here, and it couldn't have happened without the Tour of Rwanda. Cycling festival every single year, and now they of course have the right to host the World Championships. They've done it brilliantly. Minute 52 is our break. We are still playing with our circuit, and we are going to do so for quite a few more laps, and it goes on. Serbia, the latest to declare here, I'm afraid, and it's Onyan Ilic riding on his own, so very much a diminished roster. Now it's non-existent with just the solitary rider. Quite a few riders here, they don't have teammates. It doesn't mean that it's not going to go your way, but it's highly unlikely because you get this kind of service. This is Primožić, who is bottles. He doesn't need that many bottles, least of all one down his neck. Water carrier, especially when the days get a little bit hot, and we are starting to see some high cloud. The shadows have disappeared. There is a chance today of thunderstorms, but that doesn't mean that it takes away from the heat. We're in the centre of the African continent, in this landlocked nation at altitude, and we're talking about 26 Celsius as a maximum, but heavy humidity, and with the chance of thunderstorms. The calm before the storm, you might say, as you look around here at the vegetation, whether that be the palms, indeed the hedges, or indeed the cacti, the aloe vera. Yes, they're not moving at all, and as it stands, our pace today is a modest one. We're just underneath 42 kilometers per hour. This will get a little bit quicker. I've got a feeling that we won't see the full-on pace until we get possibly to the foot of Mount Kigali. We play with the rib, the Côte de Kigali, constantly within, of course, our small circuit here, but we do go on a longer loop. The definition of this longer loop, Brian, it's very, very tough, and I suspect that that's really where the first huge slice of attrition is going to be taken out of the main favourites today. We may lose a few at that point.
We may lose a few. It depends on whether they race it or not. It's the highest point, of course. The climb itself, 5.9 kilometres in length, 6.9 on average. So it's whether they want to play. I'm not too sure. You know, watching the World Championships last year in Zurich.
I mean, well, we have to see. It's my second elite World Championship, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's a very hard course, and I think it suits me quite well. So yeah, I hope I have the legs to be here in the final.
Because you've been showing very impressive things these last few weeks. You have the shape.
Yeah, I think so. I think from the World, I carried it here, and I hope it shows.
You like the course?
It is a really nice course, and I think, you know, the climb the elite do, which is the Mont Kigali, is going to be decisive. So yeah, I hope. I think the race is gonna explode, and I hope I can be there at the front.
Well, he thinks it will be on Mont Kigali. let's wait and see. It depends entirely on the complexion of the race, how it's been raced until that point, but it is potentially an axis upon which this race may pivot. Looking at the clouds, Brian, some of them look extraordinarily threatening. When we get to the high ground of the mountain itself, as opposed to the the little bosses that we're dealing with as part of the short circuit, if we do get a thunderstorm, it depends on how heavy that is and how long it lasts, but it will really be surely something of a shock on such a long day.
100%, and especially on the cobbles and traction and all that. But you got to remember the Kigali, the Mont Kigali is about 100 kilometres from the finishing line. Last year, Pogacar went with just under 80 kilometres to go to the finish, and it looked at some point he was paying for those efforts. Still managed to kind of hang on. I really don't think we're going to see that today. It's such a hard course this here in Kigali that I think it could be a little bit kind of later. So yeah, they're kind of half expecting it. I'd still be very surprised if we saw Pogacar and some of the favourites really go for it. But then again, you know, I was surprised by some of the riders that were up there earlier on. Del Toro was following moves, you know, earlier on today at the start. So I think 100 kilometres in this sort of course is still going to be very, very difficult. And I think what Pogacar will do is definitely use his team. I still believe this will be a little bit kind of later, the development of the race, rather than last year when he went from just under 80 kilometres to go his first attack.
Well, it's all about Pogacar, of course, but Roglic, he might come into play. I'm not quite sure what the national management is going to be like. Roglic would love to be world champion, of course. And, race too difficult for Matej Mohoric, I would have thought. Great classics man. Luka Mezgec as well. Having a classics mentality is something, but of course translating that to such a long day, it's a very, very long day. Brian, are you of the opinion that this is one of the toughest world championships that we have ever seen?
I can remember when I was growing up, the World Championships were in Salonche, and Bernardino just ground everybody to a pulp. I can remember watching that because the commissaire in the car behind was Scottish, Arthur Campbell, and of course in that breakaway was a certain Robert Miller. So I was a young lad at the time watching that, and that was just an incredible course. Very few riders finished that year, but looking at this course today, and we heard from Alaphilippe thinking there'd be very few riders left. It's just going to be terrible, he said. So I think it will be really attritional today, and yeah, I agree that's one of the hardest ever courses that we've had for World Championships.
Brian, there is a sense as well that on occasion riders can ride themselves. I think I alluded to it earlier on. They can ride themselves into form on the day itself, especially on this kind of distance. Greg LeMond, notably, when he won for the second time, beat Sean Kelly in the Worlds. He described being absolutely empty and was declaring himself, and he was encouraged to stay with the race by Sean Kelly himself. Then he goes on and beats Sean Kelly in a sprint, to, of course, the great detriment of Sean. He never quite forgot it, and neither did I. I never forgot the anecdote, and let alone the action. But can you find yourself, even if you are struggling just a little bit? I'm trying to give myself some encouragement for Tom Pidcock, who's not looked great at the beginning here today. He looks uncomfortable. Can he find himself? I'm not asking you, will he? I'm saying, is it possible?
Yeah, look, you have to have the form coming in here, so it's not a form guide, it's a feeling guide. It's one of these situations where it's a long day. Everybody here's got good form, otherwise they wouldn't be here. So I think it's just a case of some races, and many of the races that I used to do, I used to prefer to feel not so good at the start. Because if you're not so good at the start, you think more about how you can conserve energy more than anything else, and you don't waste energy. The worst thing is when you do feel good, you waste energy, and it's about saving today.
This is the Kigali Genocide Memorial, just located not that far from the centre of Rwanda's capital city. And it is, of course, in commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. It came 10 years after that. Terrible time. And a reminder, really, of how dark the world can be. It doesn't matter where you are on this planet, and how, like Rwanda, you can indeed recognise it, acknowledge it, but also move on and indeed form something rather wonderful, which is Rwanda itself and Kigali. They have brought us this phenomenal festival. And despite the darkness of the past, it almost acts as a measure by which to experience and appreciate the joy that something like the World Championships can bring, without ever forgetting those who are departed within that darkness that was. We got ourselves a breakaway. It is, of course, the World Championships, the Men's Elite Road Race, here in Africa for the very first time. I've got a feeling we'll be coming back, which is something wonderful, and the love of cycling being spread around the planet. Right now, not much love being lost between these guys. 7 up the road. Raul Garcia Perna did make it over for Spain, and the teams represented up front have got some principles that might have a shout later on. Denmark, Anders Foldager has made the trip. They'll be thinking about Mathias Helmoser. Great Ardennes rider, might suit him today. Julien Bernal is up the road for France. They will be hoping to slingshot someone like Pavel Sivakov, possibly Paul Seychelles, but they've lost Alaphilippe and Louis Barret, but they do have Bernard up front. Mano Wissing for the Netherlands. Short-handed team by some of their own standings of the past, but they have Tiemann Arensman, and they also have Bolka Mollema. Ghana's John Britton, I'm afraid, no longer part of proceedings, but he's no shame in that. Unfortunately, we have lost quite a few. More on that in a moment. Back to our breakaway. Raul Garcia has made it up to the front for Spain. Spain, unfortunately, now without Marc Soler, leaving Juan Ayuso slightly hobbled, I would say, majorly hobbled, I guess, without Marc Soler. But we'll have to rely on, indeed, the support of the entire team, who will be falling in behind Juan Ayuso, who has got himself a long contract over 5 years. I think it might even be 7. With Little Trek, which is great news for him, so a little bit of settlement, and he comes here with his gander up, which is great. Says he's on form after coming out of La Vuelta. Ivo Oliveira started the move for Portugal. He, I would say, is one of the favourites within that group. They've got Tiago Antunes, they've got Julião, and they also have Morgado. Strong team, Portugal, but a quarter of their number are up the road. Different rosters. Different amount of personnel. Fabio Christian has made the trip for Switzerland. His namesake Jan Christian is also in the team, so is Mauro Schmidt and Mark Hershey. Any of those could be surprises today, and we've seen that surprises can win prizes. As we saw in the women's elite race, Switzerland looked to have really nailed themselves on for a medal in that race. Might happen today. Fabian Weiss, the rider, I didn't mention from Switzerland, but they have Fabio Christian up the road. So a Fabio and a Fabian. There we are. Maris Meyerhofer of Germany. It would be a surprise if Germany were to thrive, but you never know. Meyerhofer, handy rider. Jonas Rusch, Jörg Zimmermann, who'll hope to be bringing it all back home and keeping it with a musical. Engelhardt Humperdinck, Felix Engelhardt is indeed also part of a 4-man German team. The rosters are varied. The biggest team here is Slovenia. The gift being you're allowed a maximum of 8, which has been brought by Belgium, also by Denmark, also by Great Britain, also by France. Their rosters, of course, diminishing. But as a world champion, Tadej Pogačar allowed to come here as well. So 9 for Slovenia, which seems a little bit unfair because they are so strong. When you look at Govetska, Nezgets, Mohoric, Novac, Jaka Primožič, Primož Roglic, Matiš Zuma and Gal Glevar, as well as Tadej Pogačar himself, you realise just what an amazing force they are. Right now, they've not been forced to do too much chasing. Other teams have actually come and started to help out. The United States have been busy, but Quinn Simmons will be their secret weapon. The least secret weapon out there, other than, I think, Ireland's Ben Healy, who we know will have a go. It's a question of when and from how far out. What's Ben Healy going to do? Well, we know what he's going to do, but when's he going to do it, Brian?
Well, that's the question. He always goes from a distance, a problem for one of the riders here. I think it might have been a bit of a gear change on the corner there, but yeah, it's always a question of the unknown. Victor Campenaerts it was for Ben Healy. He does go from distance, so I think he'll choose. He is the sort of rider that could possibly use the Mount Kigali to his advantage. But looking at the front here, Carlton, it's interesting to see that Mexico are helping out. You've got 4 teams riding at the front. Belgium here with Vermeers. You've got Slovenia with Zuma. Barta there for the USA, but also adding into the mix one rider here from Mexico. Of course, they've got Del Toro. He could be a feature. He's come into these championships with great form. But you know, the Belgians, they've got the numbers. Fortunately for them, they have got the numbers to be able to help Evenepoel. Unfortunately, they've lost Van Wilder in that crash that happened a couple of laps ago. But the race has really settled down now into the formula I think we've known from the past. But it just surprises me a little bit to see that Mexico are riding. And just as I was saying, Barta, well, his day's done. The Mexican rider as well that was involved here, he's gone backwards in the cobbles. So Vermeers, following Vermeers, causing a little bit of concern for some of the riders that were already riding at the front.
Yeah, also concern, I guess, for Victor Campenaerts. Didn't look too flustered. He chucked a chain, made sure it was back where it needed to be. He was in the wrong gear, lifted up the saddle, spun the back wheel. Looked really kind of just a bit irked by it, rather than troubled too deeply. Lots of Australians peppered throughout the line here, and Campenaerts is making his way back in. Not too much fear by the pace that we've got for the time being. We're averaging just over 41.5 kilometres per hour for the day so far. Just over 42, I should say. Just updated my screen. Still got none too small matter of what, 3 3/4 laps, 4 laps to complete, in fact, before we actually go downhill and then head out of town. So at 4 laps time, Brian, suddenly things are going to get very, very uncomfortable.
Well, they're uncomfortable for a lot of riders already. You know, Barta, that was already riding at the front for the USA, he's gone backwards. You can see that Florian Vermeers is putting a little bit of pressure on, even though that Campenaerts is in the cars trying to come back to the race. But a few of the riders, even Zuma for Slovenia, starting to get distances. Goveka is at the front for Slovenia now with Julian Vermeers. So Zuma is gone, Barta's gone, the Mexican rider is gone. So the pace is pretty decent on this cobble climb this time.
European mountain bikes champion, Tom Bidcock, and more than that. So the biggest success of his career was actually third place in La Vuelta, proving to himself, apart from anything else, he's got the endurance to take on a Grand Tour. There's Evan Paul just coming through here with his golden helmet. Del Toro not that far away, and indeed Danny Boccaccio himself just coming up over the rise past this fan zone off the cobbles. Lots of checking over shoulders to see who is where. Denmark, that was Asbjørn Hjelmors just looking around. It'll be Skjelmors they're looking for. That's a wonderful shot, just showing you the roller coaster that we're dealing with. Sometimes of emotions, and sometimes, quite frankly, just a roller coaster of form, and just hoping that Tom Pidcock is not struggling too much. He's probably, it could be that he's just riding wise and just holding himself back and then delivering something deeper into the day, as Brian was pointing out a little bit earlier on. If you start the day on great form and you're all guns blazing, then there's only one way to go, and that's to have your form diminish through such a long run. I mean, it's huge what we're having to deal with, what the riders are having to deal with. There's still 191 kilometres of the day remaining, and we're not that far off 2 hours of racing already. You talk about attrition, Brian, it's already happening, but this could be a very thin on the ground peloton by the end.
I think it will. The way things are going at the moment, and you know, to see the riders that are already riding at the front now disappearing off the back. You know, one was Will Barta. I still don't understand why the USA were riding, even with Barta. I don't think it made a huge difference, and I don't think they're too worried about the 7 riders that are in front. However, the 7 riders that are in front are from strong cycling nations. But just look at the lime green jerseys here. They're well in control of this. I possibly would have lent on them. If I was one of the national team managers, I would have lent on them more so than anybody else. But they do have some support from Belgium today. They did have USA and Mexico helping them out, but definitely they have got good support from Belgium, which comes from the coaches. The coach here, very respected, Serge Pauls. I know Serge pretty well, and you know, they've decided that, you know, they will support Evenepoel, and the best way to support him is to put a rider at the front to help Slovenia.
Ollie Knight just comes to the right-hand side of the road, gets himself a rear puncture exchange here, not wanting to swap bikes. Not that much pace in the day, and it may well be that it takes longer to get to his bike, because it won't be one of the principals. By that I mean, if you are one of the favoured riders, let's say somebody like Tom Pidcock, you are likely to have a spare bike on the edge of the car, which is very quick to get to, because at the pointy end of the race, if you do get yourself a puncture, it's easier just to get a new bike, absolutely fettled exactly to your requirements, size-wise, in every regard, off the car, and then you get back onto it. Riders do have their favoured bikes, however. Even if you do make an exchange for something that apparently looks exactly the same, it can be that you have a favoured bike and you'd quite like to get it back, thank you very much. So call it luck, suspicion, you name it, but riders are so really dialed in to the geometry of their favourite bikes that even apparently exactly the same bike, one will feel better than another. Here's Byukuzenge of Rwanda, one of those that has abandoned. If you find yourself 12 and 14 minutes off the front of the race, then you're going to be in trouble, and you'll be gated, asked to leave the course. And we're seeing a lot of that happening. We're also seeing riders having left due to injury, I'm afraid, and sometimes sickness. Alaphilippe, who looked sprightly, possibly testing himself out, seeing how unwell he was, didn't like the answer he got, and he is off the bike. Others have departed due to injury with some touches of wheels. Campanazzi was part of an early animation, a potential really to get off up the road, caused so much panic and worry that it was a very busy start to the day, possibly down to this man.
Yeah, I think he was just marking things out. Nice to see Victor Campanus, such a family man. He's got his boy's picture on the top tube of his bike there, and I was in communication with him when he left the Vuelta with a little bit of sickness, and the day after he said, "Oh, my job's not done, I'm on daddy duty today." And he sent me a picture with his his lad and his kids in one of these chairs, small, the small kids chairs and things like that, and he was looking after them. So his job never stopped.
Well, there's no better privilege than being a parent if you're lucky enough to be so. That's what you're here for. We're here for the World Championships in Africa for the first time, and the sunshine has come out between the clouds. Some clouds gathering for those who've done a lot of work early on, and Will Barter is taking a well-earned sit down. He's going for a nice drink. Ice water? No, I'm going for the old red label, he says. And why not? Now a chance for these guys. These are Sierra Leone's. That was a 1,000-yard stare, wasn't it? Thinking about what might have been. Well, what was is great representation by a whole raft of different riders. And Sierra Leone with Jello and Komora, we saw them both there, just taking in what they've achieved. And they have ridden in the World Championships. You know what that's like, Brian?
Yes, indeed, and it's the first. I think maybe the stare was to the fact that they were playing ABBA, but at the end of the day, Sierra Leone was the.
I like ABBA. Back off.
I'll continue. Sierra Leone was, debuting here, and it's just the fact that they've got an opportunity to ride the World Championships. I think they have to be proud of that.
The winner takes it all is, of course, an ABBA track, Brian. Might have to bring a few more in before the end of today. So, who's going to meet their Waterloo? That's what we want to know today. Stop now. France. I don't know. What about Pavel Sivakov? Let's dwell on a few, shall we, Brian? Sivakov comes into this race with a lot of plaudits.
Let me just have a look. Sivakov, second, well, mixed really, second in the Grand Prix Quebec. Apart from that, Tour of Britain 10th overall. So yeah, he's okay. 87th in the Tour de France. Of course, he was there working for his team leader Pogacar. So yeah, he's one of the riders that even last year when Pogacar attacked was just under 80 kilometres to go. He was the kind of last man or the rider that tried to go with him. So I think with France having Bernard here, I think they knew that Alaphilippe wasn't possibly feeling that great, that Sivakov could be, a feature. But again, it's one of the other riders that rides for UAE Team Emirates. Where does his allegiance lie? We've seen this happen in many World Championships. But I think Sivakov definitely, France are here. I know Vauclair wouldn't want it any other way. He is the manager here for the French national team, and Thomas Vauclair will make sure that they all ride for France today.
I love Tommy Vauclair, of course, with his face pulling whenever he was on absolutely the limit. The tongue would come out, starting to lick at an invisible ice cream that was hung in front of him. Fantastic. Like a donkey turbo, I think you might say, which was hanging a carrot on a stick in front of a donkey, making it go faster. That old cartoon. Wasn't that from Winnie the Pooh? I think it might have been. But anyway, yeah, less literature. More poetry today, perhaps. 184.8 kilometres from home, and we've got to, 2 minutes and 39. Our breakaway's doing a good job of actually moderating the day. But we don't want moderation, we want action, and we're going to get plenty of that, I think, by the time we have completed 150. We're in about 30k's time. 2 more laps, Brian, and then we leave the city, and that'll be the first time that we have departed in these championships.
Yeah, exactly. The time trials were a little bit of kind of out and back, and then came on to the circuits to the finish. And of course, the circuits have been quite consistent in the road races that we've had, and it's kind of hard because normally you come to the World Championships, you kind of watch the other races, from the junior races, under 23s, the women's elite, and I think they've all been very different in their own unique way. So very difficult to see how this is going to kind of play out. But I think everybody knows that this is going to be super hard. It's we've already seen riders at the start making, and some big riders making little bits of an effort. We've seen a crash and taking out a couple of key individuals for the different nations, and I think this is going to come down to a very, very small group. Like I was saying with the World Championships in Ceylon in the 1980s with Bernardino, was it Baroncelli? There was only I think 4 of them in the left at the end, and I think very few people finished that year. But it's whether Pogačar is on that kind of dominant performance. He's got plenty of riders to be able to help him, of course, and he's using them now. Belgium are prepared to help. USA did, Mexico did as well, but this race is down to Belgium and Slovenia controlling.
Volcanoes National Park, and of course it is the home to the big beasts. So that statue of the gorilla, I can't help but think it looks like it's holding a microphone, which puts me in mind of another silverback that I'm sitting next to. In 2005, Rwanda began officially naming mounted gorillas. It became something known as a celebration of nature, and of course they all look extremely different. And I've seen the book, actually. To just focus on Isaac Del Toro. We'll come back to him in a moment. But yeah, they named all of those majestic animals, gave them value currency almost, and you can the personality of each of the creatures is clearly on display, and it's a great idea. The Quita Izina ceremony is an opportunity to thank the communities and, of course, those that help out in the Volcano National Park to look after the gorillas, whose population has expanded dramatically over the last 20 years. And for that, we are very grateful, not only to those volunteers themselves, but also to the nation of Rwanda, who've brought us this brilliant World Championship as well, courtesy, of course, of the UCI, our governing body that look after cycling so well. Meanwhile, through the feed zone, easier take from the breakaway. You really only get one bite at this, but yeah, make sure you get what you want. Sometimes it's not to your liking. You take a bottle with some gels strapped to it. And look at this, Brian. This is how the race is being delivered. How lovely.
Yep, we see this pretty much throughout the world, whether you're at Italy, France, and they all watch it on local TV and then jump out to the side of the road to cheer the riders on. I was just, looking at Eric, the Rwandan rider, climb off there. I was quite fortunate to work with Adrian Niyonshuti, who's a kind of pioneer of cycling in this part of the world, of course. He's 38 years of age now, and he was national champion in 2010, 11 and 12. One of these breakout riders from Rwanda, and having spent time with him over the kind of years with MTN Quebecer, he just seeing his drive as an individual inspired me as well, because when you hear the story of his family life and where he's come from, and I met him at the 2012. I went up to Stratford to meet him, and he was just so proud. Bit of a trailblazer for Rwandan cycling, and I suspect a lot that the riders from Rwanda are here at championships have been inspired at some point by Adrian. When you consider, and we see the memorial to the genocide that happened in this part of the world, he lost 3 brothers during that, and that was the kind of motivation for him to try and kind of break through in sport, and he did. He was a super rider, and a lot of respect for Adrian, and he's doing wonders for Rwanda, and he must be very, very proud to see the World Championships in his back garden.
Well, we do, of course, have the Tour of Rwanda. We have the Missa Bongo in the Tropicali in Gabon. The Tour of Burkina Faso as well, which in the past has provided some fabulous racing. Racing, of course, down in South Africa, where I guess the main success in the past has indeed come from. But Africa has still got so much potential. And I think in recognition of that, the World Championships had to come here, and this year it finally has.
Yeah, no, it's great. I know that Visit Rwanda, they sponsor, is it Arsenal? They sponsor the.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've seen it around in other kind of sporting platforms, but you know, Africa, I've got so many races. I've raced in Africa in my lifetime.
Arsenal,
yeah. Yep. Not that I'm a fan of Arsenal, but one of my family members is, so that's where I've probably seen it. But just looking at, you know, lots. I was fortunate to be part of the MTN Quebec team, which is a lot of African riders, you know, Algerians, and with Yusuf Regege. And they've got the Tour of Algeria, there's the Tour of Morocco, you know, in the north. There's a lot of racing here. Of course, you know, for a lot of these riders to come to Europe, which is still the hub of world cycling, and that's what the UCI have been trying to do over the years, is try and kind of globalise cycling. I don't know how we're going to get away from the hub of Europe, but you have to. Even in my day, you had to go and live in Europe, and for a lot of these riders to come here and race in Europe, I know for a lot of the African riders, it's so important for them to get home, to see loved ones and have that home environment, and that was always the trouble sometimes with visas and various other things. So yeah, just hopefully this will continue, that we'll see more and more races and more African races on our TV screens.
Felix Engelhardt clearly struggling. You never know whether it's just sheer exhaustion on the day. You can just get yourself a misfeed, or indeed a little bit of illness can happen absolutely anywhere. So, yeah, I'm afraid Germany down to 3 with Meyerhofer, Rusch and Zimmermann, hoping to bring it all back home at the end of today. Meanwhile, I'm afraid that Felix Engelhardt is no longer part of proceedings. This is Fabio Christen that you are looking at right now. Been busy, but not as busy as those who find themselves off and up the road. Foldager, Bernard, Wissing, Garcia, Oliveira, Christen and indeed Meyerhofer. They've got work to do, and you're looking at them right now. This is a band of brothers that hope to make an impact today, but 2.5 minutes is nothing, especially with the sort of distance that we have got. I mean, we've seen maximum gaps on breakaways get up to 15 minutes sometimes and still get paired back over 180 kilometres. And with the sort of terrain that we've got here, I'm afraid, getting up the road, it kind of has a whiff of the foolish about it, but you never know. Never know what's going to happen with the weather either. If we do get a dousing of rain, it's likely to be very, very heavy. And there's a suggestion that there's some moisture in the air at the moment as we come back to the cobbles. We'll be seeing this section for 6 laps at the end. We're completing 9, by the way, before we exit and head out into the countryside. We are on lap number 6. We'll be starting lap number 6, I should say, once they pass the start-finish line, and this cobbles introduces you to it. It's the last test, and it was proving to be a decisive one in the women's elite race yesterday, when Canada had a dramatic victory, but it had to be achieved on this, and it's almost a heartbreak hill, this, isn't it, for some?
Yeah, no, I think this is the main feature, this climb up to the finishing line. This is pretty much shaped, you know, the World Championship. Remember this cobble climb up to the finishing climb for years to come. But yeah, it's not easy at all, and you have to add in all the other kind of layers: the humidity, the heat, the altitude, you know, everything at all. And even some of these riders coming from Canada to here, you know, the travel, and we believe there was a little bit of kind of sickness in the Dutch camp. Sam Omen never started. Of course, we heard that the junior team had that illness, and they were in a different hotel to the elite riders. And yeah, of course, you come here, and you know, you have to kind of look after yourself. We're hearing a few people that I've come here sick, hoping to get better. We believe that some people have got sick when they've been here. It's it's difficult for these bike riders to be totally 100%, and that's what you wish for. One day races are, when you target them, it's always very difficult to get everything spot on. One of the races that I used to really kind of concentrate year on year was my national championships. I won it twice myself, but within 4 years I was never outside the top 2, and I thought I was very, very good at getting everything right on the day, and not everybody can do that. We see in stage races that you don't have to be on form going into the race, but you can kind of ride into a 3-week race. But in a one-day race like this, you need everything spot on to get the best out of yourself. Pogacar, well, we know that he can do it. There's various other riders that can do it, but it's a skill in itself. Even the last ride, when you do your last ride, because believe me, a lot of these riders have probably in the last 3 or 4 days probably done a 200-kilometre ride. So and when I say that to people, some people are saying, why would you do that so close to a major? This is what you have to do. So everything from your nutrition, everything, even at altitude, it suppresses your appetite, and you've got to remember to keep on eating. Taking your gels, taking your nutrition, your hydration is so important. Keeping cool, we've already seen early on. Tom Pidcock was getting doused in water. So there's a lot of elements to this race you have to get spot on, and then you have to keep on telling yourself, keep the gears down, keep twiddling, save. That's all it is. The World Championships is about saving the whole time, and of course there's a lot of riders in here not trying to win the race. Of course, we said it at the start, Carlton, that there's a lot of riders here just to get here was their goal. Just to ride a few laps round this course was their goal. To go, imagine as one of the African smaller nations, this is your first UCI race this year, and you're on the start line with Pogacar, Evenepoel, all these big stars. That's something in itself. That inspires a lot of these other riders to try and do that little bit more in training. And but for a lot of these riders that are here as workhorses, we possibly only have maybe 10, 12 riders that are capable of winning this race today. Everybody else in this race is here to support them.
Evenepoel fans, side of the roads. Kalmaratov, we just saw as an exit for Uzbekistan. Certainly looks that way. Coming up to the rise here, some riders have decided to keep their trade helmets, but the golden helmet looming large in our consciousness. What chance Remco Evenepoel today? He's got a very good one. He's already got the bragging rights over Tadej Pogacar of having beaten him in the time trial, and indeed caught him as his 2.5-minute man. Can you believe that? Well, it happened. Could something strange happen today? I'm actually wondering whether we might get from a side quarter somebody that could produce something of a surprise. Well known to us, of course, after a busy cycling season that's not over yet. Even after these World Championships, it seems to roll on almost in perpetuity these days. It's never that long before you're getting busy down under. Might actually be coming down to Australia to visit some of you, by the way, as part of my stand-up show, Tales of the Tour de France with Colin Kelly. I look forward to seeing some of you. More details for you on social media the closer we get to that, but that should be fun, and today will be as well. It will also be torture for quite a few riders, I'm afraid, so let's wish them the very best. A team that's been quiet so far is Italy.
I was just about to say that. I was waiting for you to finish.
Well, here we are.
And I saw them towards the front, and I said, there's one. I think we've mentioned every other team, and you can see them in the dark blue Azzurri kits, and you can see Ciccone there towards the front. But they've started with a strong team. They have got plenty of history in this race, of course. They've got Baggioli, Cattaneo, Ciccone, Fortunato, Frigo, Masnada, Garofoli, Sobrero. They've got a really good team, and it's when you were mentioning then that we might have maybe some kind of outsiders, so maybe some teams that could feature in this race could surprise a little bit. I think the Italians could be in the mix here.
No Giulio Pellizzari, he withdrew, and that means that we have an elevation of Giulio Ciccone. This is Tadej Pogačar just being brought back as we speak, and I guess you might say in good company, but not quite sure what the issue is. It may well simply have been a comfort break. Let us wait and see. But no panic and no real feisty attack going off at the front. We won't worry too much. But a job to do. Was it a technical? Looks like it might well have been. He's just stopping by the pits here, but gets himself back on the bike. Got two riders around him, and marshalled nicely by Mohoric and Novak to get himself back in. But yeah, Tadej Pogačar, as we say, you're going to have some bad luck. Maybe it's just a little bit of fettling. Nothing too much to fear, especially with 174 kilometres to go. And there we are. The whip hand is up. Is he calling for help or is he calling for pace?
No, he's calling for the convoy. The convoy is important. It was very quick there. Was that a Portaloo at the side of the road there?
Might have been.
His teammates had stopped. There seemed to be a Portaloo in the pits area as you normally have. But the waving is calling for the rest. We're going to see it? No, we're not. No. Or are we? Well, let's see it again.
If it was, as we call it, a comfort break, which is basically a toilet stop, then you know he's got that ballast dealt with, and he'll get back on with the task of the day.
But he's calling the vehicles to come past. Normally in a pro race, you'll get the convoy. But you're talking about national teams here, and some of the times the national managers. This is probably the only race they do.
I was going to say not as dialed in.
No, there's certain protocol. So he's waving up. He's wanting the convoy to be very, very tight so that they can just jump between the cars and use as less energy as possible, just like in front of them. But Shimano Neutral Service here are helping them a little bit. They understand that there's a lot of kind of ex-pro bike riders involved there. But I think it must have been a comfort break, maybe a Portaloo, because on this circuit, where can you do that? And the fact that he stopped in the pits area, you could see clearly from the pictures there that he was at the front of the peloton. So having that slippage room, stopping, having a comfort break, and then continue his effort, and now they're making their way swiftly back to the peloton.
They've got Eddie Dunbar with his Jayco, as you can see, plum-coloured trade kit helmet. There is Tadej Pogačar, nothing too stressed. Not giving us a wave though, I note, but he's pulled the tresses of hair out of his helmet. And there was actually a helmet that was sold with tresses of hair already attached to it, I think possibly just for a laugh, but I did think about it, to recreate the glory days. Joining Eddie Dunbar on this trio, which includes Tadej Pogačar from Slovenia, is Chao Chang Wang of Thailand, who's still very much in the race. Good for him. He's just been tagged off actually as they get into the cars here.
Actually, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Joe McAleer from Met. She looks after the sponsorships, the marketing of Met helmets, and I was saying, surely not. These helmets are, designed like this. And he said, no. He puts his helmet on, and the tufts automatically come out. It's not a fact that he pulls them out himself. Is a bit of a trademark. It just happens when he puts the helmet on.
Well, let's hear from Tadej Pogačar, who spoke at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you need to have a feeling today. It's a so long race and so hard race. You need to have a feeling for your body and for the race. You can talk about the tactics and everything like all day, the day before the race, but in the end, it can be so many factors, and you need to have the feeling for the race.
Do you have the same feeling as last year?
As terms of shape, I think I'm really good. and in terms of motivation and energy, I think even better.
Is it going to happen in Mount Kigali?
I think so. We're gonna see some sparks there because it's so hard the climb. So I think we cannot avoid that climb to go easy over. I think a lot of people will try to attack even before, maybe to get advantage before the climb. So yeah, it's gonna be hard.
Luke Plapp has exited the race, so Luke will be watching us, I hope. But yeah, that's part of the engine room of Australia. They have Jai Hindley, of course, Jay Vine, Storer. Plapp was very much part of what is, I must describe, as one of the most exciting teams here, Australia. If you're looking for a team that will not be afraid to go very deep and have the weaponry to actually handle themselves in just about any kind of scenario, Jai Hindley will be their principal, but there's some very strong other cards to play. I would have had Luke Plapp down as possibly within that top vanguard of 4 riders that they want to work for. He's out of the race, which means there's added importance to great Jay Vine, Michael Storer, and of course Jai Hindley himself.
I think so. I think the 3 kind of principals have been really impressed with Michael Storer recently. He's had really good performances. Jay Vine, of course, a teammate of the trade team of Terry Pogacar. But I really do think that Jay Vine, Storer, and as you say, Jai Hindley can really feature, because both of them, both Jai Hindley and Jay Vine, had some good form in the Vuelta, and so when you've had that Grand Tour, you come out, you put the preparation in, and I think they are the 3 from Australia. Michael Matthews, however, has got a bit of kind of bandage, a bit of a limp before the start. It's not been, I don't think, advertised anywhere, but it looks as if he's had a little bit of an off in training.
On the way back for Michael, it was good to actually, very much good fun to work with him during the Tour de France. Looking at, so if you're wondering where the Hirondelle, the swallows go, you've just seen one skimming the water here, which is absolutely lovely, in the Akagara National Park. Indeed, this is where we soon will be heading out towards the great mountain itself, Mont Kigali. We have the Côte Kigali, the Côte meaning a rib. If you get Côte de Boeuf, if that's what you're going to ask for, it's basically a big rib, sometimes a T-bone. But the Akagara National Park is one of the beauties, one of the treasures of this part of the world, and really something that you need to visit if you're coming out here. I mentioned it earlier on in the week about taking a local guide, and that is really something that you should do. Best thing to do is get in touch with the local universities and speak to the Students' Association, and quite often they will provide you with somebody who will know an awful lot about the flora and fauna, sometimes from the, I don't know, studying zoology, who knows, but it's a lovely way. I've done it myself in the past. It's a great idea because it's a surprise to them because it's not pre-arranged, and you're not getting too many other hands in the pot, if you see what I mean, influencing the decision to take a guide, or indeed the guide themselves. So it's nice to sort of spring it upon a young person, really, who can then give you a fresh view on what is a spectacular country from their own inside perspective. And occasionally you might get invited back to their home and just experience the culture as well. It's a way of just really finding out an awful lot more that's not on any kind of official roster. Sometimes you just have to do it yourself, and to my mind, occasionally going freestyle is the best way. Will Jay Vine go freestyle today? That's what we want to know. Yeah, he's a fabulous rider. He has some exceptional results, not least of late in La Vuelta. Will he get the call? At least only ringing in his head, perhaps, in a finale if he's up against Pogacar.
Well, I think there's no secret that I haven't done many one-day races, and this is one of the hardest ones on record. So, yeah, I think there's definitely other favourites higher on the list than me.
But the legs are there, and the course is hard.
Yeah, I mean, the legs are there, but yeah, it's still a different story with 7 hours of racing compared to the 4-hour, 5-hour stages we had in the Volta. So we'll see how we go. We've got Jai in really good shape. He did GC throughout the Volta, so we'll see what happens there. And yeah, we've got a really good, strong 8 guys here to put on a good race.
Thank you very much, Jake.
There we are. I don't think we found out too much that we wouldn't have expected. He played the PR straight bat there, didn't he? Will the team get involved? Can you imagine Brian Smith, Tadej Pogacar, Isaac doesn't matter. Hear the question. Isaac Del Toro, Tadej Pogacar, Jay Vine in each other's pockets in a very intense finale. And let's say Jay Vine wins it. And every day coming down for breakfast on the Grand Tours that he shares, of course, with Tadej Pogacar, he's wearing the rainbow bands. How annoying will that be for Tadej Pogacar?
I think you just have to take it in the chin. Not a lot you can do. From what we've seen, the strongest rider has won this race. I think yesterday you could say, the strongest and bravest rider won the race. And I think if there's someone brave enough, then they could, really be pulling on that World Championship jersey, and why not for the Australians? And this is what we were talking about, that getting yourself 100% for a one-day race is a little bit different, and not everybody's the best at doing that. We just heard from Jay Vine there that he doesn't do many kind of one-day events. There was a little bit of criticism about why is Vingegaard not here, because he's another rider that some people have said that he only does stage races. The Grand Tours is his thing. He doesn't do one-day races. I think one time in the past he rode the World Championships for Denmark, but like we were talking earlier as well about how these riders, what motivates them, and to ride as part of your national team is such an incredible moment for everybody. But to ride stage races where some of these stages take up to 5 hours, but this is a different beast in itself. You're talking about 6.5 hours on average of the World Championships. It could be a little bit longer today, but getting everything right on the day, that feeling, that thought process. And that was the thing that we talked about with Tom Pidcock. Tom Pidcock was never, or hasn't been, the best at, and he even admitted himself, concentration. Keep, every day of a Grand Tour, that was always a question. Well, he's proven that now in the Vuelta. He's managed to do that. It's something that he struggled with, and that's why he does multiple disciplines. So it's a very different kettle of fish here to become world champion. You have to be totally on it. Even hearing from Pogacar there, he's saying all the right things. He's saying the things that I don't know what you got from it, Carlton. That
not much. It was more PR speak.
His last bit was the fact it's motivational wise, he's really good, because that's what he's been criticised with since the Tour de France, the last week of the Tour, and then afterwards. That's where people have been looking at the motivation there, the mental fatigue, that sort of stuff, the burnouts. These are the sort of things that the people have been saying. Well, that was quite apt. He said, no, physically he's good, but mentally and motivational wise, he's really good.
Just looking back at Jonas Vingegaard, and thanks to Pro Cycling Stats for this, but Il Lombardia was the last classic day that Jonas Vingegaard did, and that was in 2022, Brian. Of course, he came into 2023, and notwithstanding, didn't have any classics to his name, and then, of course, injuries started to wash in. He came back to the Tour de France, finished runner-up in 24, and of course went to the Tour this year as runner-up again. But yeah, it seems to have dialed out of Jonas Vingegaard any kind of proclivity or desire to take part in single-day races, classics. Lombardia, long day, finished 16th after 253 kilometres. It is one of the big ones, and not that much of a difference distance-wise to here, and plenty of altitude gain in that race as well.
Yeah, I don't understand.
He was 16th, by the way.
I loved stage races. You know, they were super hard day after day after day, but one-day races are, you know, great. I don't understand. He's got the physical attributes to do well in races like Lombardia, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and, you know, Flèche Wallonne, which isn't the kind of big distance, but I just don't understand, you know, why he's not, or he hasn't in the past concentrated on one-day races, because you know, a lot of these races that we've been talking about are super special. And I know that Pogacar, you know, targeted Roubaix this year. I wouldn't think that Vingegaard is totally suited to that, outside his comfort zone a little bit, but some of the hillier one-day races definitely would.
Yeah, Drome Classic, I think he's had a go out in the past, and there's various others as well that I think could suit him, but not his choice, not for the time being anyway. Choice of these guys very early on was to go for it. Too early for some, you might say. Well, we are just about to enter lap number 7. Indeed, complete lap 7. I think it's fair to say. And indeed, take on the next 2 laps, which will introduce us to our big loop. I'll be happy to get out of town, to be honest, just to see a little bit of variation. I love this circuit, by the way, but unfortunately, this man, Jörg Zimmermann, is going to be taking his bike back home, because he is done. That's Germany down to 2 with Meyerhofer and Rush remaining. We talked about the attrition rate earlier on, Brian, and we are already seeing it. Ollie Knight is just on the back at the moment, and we're still, as an average today, what, 42 kilometres per hour? We haven't gone deep yet, dare I say it, but that's going to come.
Yeah, it's very different from the elite women's race yesterday. The middle of the race was relatively quiet and slow, but now we're, you know, in the men's elite race today, it's your traditional grind down. It's the team of Belgium and Slovenia that are just grinding everybody down, and I think everybody, you can safely say, that has watched the World Championships, there seems to be more action at the back door than the front.
Schumacher here, I'm afraid, possibly part of the early engine room for Slovenia.
Well, he was the only rider riding at the front, so he's done his 100 kilometres.
Good lad. And yeah, no shame in that. And they've still got 8 riders, which is the same as the most populous teams here. What a gift.
That's what happens. You got defending champion. That's the rules. You know, everybody else is allowed 8. You have got 8 plus 1, and you know, it does make a little bit of a difference. But you know, having Belgium here, well, we've seen them do this with the young Wieder in the under-23 race, and you know, he didn't start the time trial. He's a big hope for the under-23 road race. Had a bit of a glute problem. It's more to do with the time trial position than anything else. But in the end, for all the work that they did in under-23 races, they came away with nothing. But I think that Evenepoel's shown that his form in the time trial, that they really believe that he can win this.
I believe as well. Just clearing his nasal passages there as they go over this rather lovely shot, I must say, that just gives that wonderful rise. There is Tadej Pogacar, just disengaged from his teammates. He's got a couple towards the back.